Hey authors, welcome back to Writer's Workshop. Writers, let's go back to one of our favorite pages in the book, Sharks. When we read it together, let's really focus on making our voices match the punctuation and sound smooth like we're talking and telling a story. Let's read it together. I've put it up on the screen for you. What is quick? What is quiet? What has 5 rows of teeth? What glides through the water? Chomp! It's a shark! One of the things that I love about this page that the author wrote is that she wrote it in a way that makes it fun to read. And she did that by using punctuation. You may have even noticed on that word chomp, she wrote it in all capital letters so we knew to say it with a lot of energy and enthusiasm. And that got me thinking that Anne, the author, she probably reread her writing carefully, checking to make sure that it sounded good out loud and to make sure that there weren't any mistakes or confusing parts. She probably did that so her readers could read it just as smoothly as we did. So let's get our books ready so that they sound as smooth as Anne's. Because friends, it dawned on me that if we want to get your books ready for readers and to publish them, you will need to reread your book just like the way your reader's going to read your book. That way you can check to make sure that you've spelled everything correctly and that you've done everything the best you can and you've added punctuation and you've added capitals that lets the reader read the story in the way that you want them to. And friends, one way you can reread your writing is to pretend like you are the reader and you've never read your story before and you're reading it for the first time. And you may recall we practiced doing this with our small moments stories at the beginning of the year. And so we get to do them with our teaching books. And this is an important strategy that all writers do often. They take a step back from their writing and they pretend to be a reader of their writing. And they do this so that way they can catch maybe some small mistakes, or they realize, you know what? I want this to be read as a question, or I want it to be read with a lot of energy, so I'm going to add an exclamation point. It's a great way for you to see how you can make your writing even better. So friends, today I want to teach you that when writers get ready to publish their books, they first reread their writing, thinking about how to get it ready for their readers to read out loud and what it will sound like. One way they get their books ready for their readers is by pretending to be the reader, checking off any mistakes or confusing parts. So writers, a student from another class named Philip said it would be okay if we helped him get his car racing book ready for readers. So let's read the first chapter of his book and look for places that maybe are a little bit difficult or confusing to read because we're practicing reading it out loud. Car racing is cool. That felt pretty good when I read that. I could say all the words. It was all spelled. They're all probably spelled right. There was a period at the end to show me to pause. So I would say that first sentence looks great, Philip. The cars have numbers on them. Drivers wear helmets. The cars have numbers on them. Drivers wear helmets. That kind of felt like a lot. I felt like I was running out of breath and I was saying almost too much in one sentence. I wonder if maybe we could take this and put it into 2 sentences. I think that's what I'm going to do. The cars have numbers on them. Drivers wear helmets. I think that's good feedback. So Philip, as we read it out loud together, we realized that we needed to turn it into 2 sentences. So we put punctuation, we put a period after the word them. So now it's the cars have numbers on them. And that punctuation, that period, tells me to pause before moving on to the next sentence. Drivers wear helmets. So we took the D and we capitalized it because it's now the beginning of a new sentence. The cars have numbers on them. Drivers wear helmets. So much better. Let's see if we can all read it together and see if it makes sense. The cars have numbers on them. Drivers wear helmets. And when we get to those big tricky words, friends, we can always look at our ways to spell words chart that we learned about in the first unit, the small moments unit. We can look at this chart. Remember, we can say it, slide it, hear it, write it. We can use snap words, those words we know in a snap, like our word wall words. We can listen for smaller chunks and words inside, and we can write it part by part, amongst other things. So there's all sorts of strategies we can use to spell those big, tricky words that we want to make sure we're using in our teaching books. So writers, did you see how I did that? I read Philip's first chapter out loud in parts. We read it together, stopping at places that were hard to read, and we checked for anything that needed to be fixed. He had a great story. We just needed to make a few little tweaks so it sounded right out loud. It was all written down. We just needed to add some punctuation and do some things that act as signals that tell the reader how to read your story. So let's look at his next chapter. Car races are dangerous. They come from front, back, and side. Car races are dangerous. They come from front, back, and side. Now, I see here that Philip is listing some things. So he's saying car races are dangerous. They come from front, back, and side. So right here, he's making a list. And when you write a list that has 3 or 4 or 5 or even a million things in it, you get to use this very cool thing called a comma. Let's say that together, a comma. So we use commas in a list, especially when we're doing it in a sentence. So anytime you make a list, you should use commas to let your reader know that they are reading a list of different things. So, car races are dangerous. They come from front, you'll see Philip put a comma, back, Philip put a comma, and side. Now, you don't actually say comma out loud, but it tells your reader to take a little bit of a pause. So let's read it together. Car races are dangerous. They come from front, back, and side. Do you see how much smoother that was as I read? Because Philip added commas, which signaled to me as the reader that this was a list and I just needed to take a quick little pause as I read through the items. So as you get ready to reread your own writing, remember, writers don't check their writings once. When writers get ready to publish, they reread their writing a couple of times, maybe even more, to check for spelling, punctuation, and capitals, because we're listening to hear how is our story going to sound out loud when other people read our story. Writers, it's always an exciting day when you get ready to share your writing with others. There are so many things you might catch when you read your writing out loud, just like a reader would. You can make sure your sentences have punctuation marks like commas or periods that tell readers when to take small and big pauses. And you can also check for capitals at the start of each sentence. A third thing you can check is words that are spelled correctly, especially really important ones, and we can use those strategies from our Ways to Spell Words chart. So writers, it's time for you to go back to your writing, reread it, and get ready to share it. All right, friends, it's your turn. Writers, go write.